Hey folks, Brad Thompson from bradthompson.co here. Basically, I'm here today to show you how to get your Camera Raw files into Lightroom and Adobe Photoshop because Nikon and Adobe aren't friends. They don't hang out together and they don't tell each other secrets about their new up-and-coming models so that the file formats can be properly inserted into the Camera Raw update in time. So now that we are early adopters, we'll have to wait 3 months before we can pull our raw files natively into Photoshop and Lightroom, which is a huge hassle. The only other option right now would be to use their Nikon's crappy NEXI and NEXD software, which is a very broken-ish type Lightroom, and I have no desire to use that software and convert the TIFF and go into Lightroom back and forth. It's a nightmare beyond epic proportions, one that I'm not willing to accept from these massive companies. So I've taken the liberty to research the crap out of file formats and basically figured a way to hack your raw files into being compatible again with Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop and every other program out there. And basically what it comes down to is understanding how RAW works. And there's a really good video on YouTube put out by the Adobe Photoshop channel. It's called The Advantages of the D&G File Format. I highly recommend all photographers that care about their pictures watch this. And after you get the technical explanation, understanding how, there's multiple, components to a raw file, the XF data, the actual payload of the image and different parameters and stuff like that, and how the differences between these different companies, you got NEF, you got CRW, there's tons of other ones from different manufacturers. They're all raw files. They're all uncompressed. But it's how they structure the data, the parameters that kind of screw things up. The D&G is kind of a universal open source format from Adobe. It's a better compression algorithm without any loss of detail. And it is universal, meaning that it works everywhere. And why manufacturers don't use this, I don't know. They should have an option on every camera to shoot D&G, in my opinion. That would get rid of so many software incompatibilities and would make our lives as photographers a lot easier. And it would also, deliver higher customer satisfaction to users of the hardware and the software. So I'll put links to this and you can watch this and kind of understand it. So after understanding the raw file format and why Camera Raw exists, I figured that, give it a try out the Adobe D&G Converter 8.8 that just got released on March 19th of this year, 2015, and that also did not work. So basically, the database of Adobe does not include the 7200. You cannot open raw file formats. It sees it as a foreign file that it does not have the ability to open. So I'm like, what's the differences between these files? So I actually opened them up in the file level in a hex editor and looked at them. And really between the two files, there's not much difference other than the model number. That's it. That's the only thing that's different. And then doing further research into the cameras, realizing that the 7200 has the same sensor as the 5500, and the 5500 is currently supported now in 8.8. So that means everything else should be the same. And I didn't see. So basically, what I needed to do next was to check the XF data to make sure that was perfectly set up right. So what I did is I searched for a good XF tool, and the one by Phil Harvey, which is compatible for PC and Mac, was the one that had everything I needed to do. Not just read it, but also modify the XF. I needed that ability to do that. So using that tool, which you can go here and get, and it works on the command line. So if you're not familiar with the command line, you might be a little it might be over your head. But if you read this and kind of follow it, you might be able to get it. But using that tool, I was actually pulling XF from my old D7100 and using the D7200 file and looking at them side by side. All the data variables are pretty much the same. So knowing that, and the only difference again was the camera model name, I went and did an experiment to see what would happen if I changed it to a D5500, which is recognized by Camera Raw. So I did that, And the way I went about doing that was I would go plug in my camera card, copy over. Oh, see, this is the Lightroom issue right here. Nothing's available. If I try to import this right now, it's going to fail. Let's not do that. Going into the camera folder, grabbing my raw files from the 7200 card. I'm going to throw it into the NEF card on my desktop. I'm going to eject this so we don't get confused. Open up the NEF folder. Here we go. As you notice, even in the icon view, even OS X Yosemite with the latest updates will not recognize these files either. So what we need to do is go back into the command line, into the terminal. If you don't know how to get into the terminal, then you probably don't want to try this. Probably do some tutorials on that first, then come back. So I'm in here. I'm looking at, I'm in my NEF folder with the files I just copied over. And if I wanted to look at the XF data using that tool, I could just do XF tool-L and then a file name. And that will read and display the XF data in the command line. So I can go back here and I can go up to the top and I can look at the camera model is 7200 right now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to issue a command, and I'm actually going to do all of these files at once. And I'm doing the tool command XF tool-model, and that's the model. That's the actual data variable for the column heading for the model number. Then equals, in quotes, Nikon D7500 space star.nef. Star is the wildcard so that all the files will be affected by this command. So as I hit this and it executes, you're going to see it will change that variable, and all of a sudden the pictures become accessible by the system. And then all these other ones, these originals, are actually backups of the original. You can keep these or you can chuck them. You can always come back and reissue the tool to re-update the XF if and when the camera update comes to support the D7200. Otherwise, you're just like in Lightroom, you're going to see D5500 taking these shots instead of your D7200. So I'm going to delete these for now, these originals. I don't need these. And if I were to try to open these in Lightroom, I'm still going to get an error for some odd reason. Photoshop will work right now if you want to see it in Photoshop. There we go. Got my camera raw, everything's good to go. I can edit it and do everything I want, but still in Lightroom it's gonna have an issue. So what I'm gonna do, and what you should do anyways, is with all raw files, you should come in and convert them to DNG. So I'm gonna use the latest DNG converter from Adobe, and I've set my file locations where I want my files and all the settings I want. I'm gonna convert these right now. There we go. And I'm going to delete my NEF files, get rid of those. So now I am left with my DNG files from my conversion, which are now in basically an open source file format that can be used by any system basically out there. Okay. So now I can go back into Lightroom, go into File, Import Photos and Video, pick that folder I just did my DNGs, everything's there. Going into pick my destination, go Import, and back to the races we go. And like I said, you're going to see the 5500 as your model until you revert back to the 7200 when the camera raw is actually updated to support the camera. So I hope this helps out. You know, it's just one extra step. You're gonna have to copy your files to a folder on the desktop, run that command, that batch command, which I'll put links to in the description of this video, and then you can get back to work and doing what you want to do. If you have any questions, go ahead and add me on Google+. I am plus Google.com plus Brad Thompson. You can follow me here. and you can just send me a private message or whatever, and I'll be glad to help you out if I can. And I hope this kind of gets all the D7200 owners a little bit of a life raft until the update of Adobe, which probably will come at the end of June. Unbelievable. It's probably going to be that long. So enjoy, and you're welcome.